Well, I've been booted from a sprint by the Wi-Fi, so I guess that's it. I'm really pleasantly surprised. It's been years since I read this, and it's really, really readable. It's just so easy. You're just gliding through it. Well, I would be if I, didn't have work to do at the same time. But yeah, it's great. And there are illustrations, I'd completely forgotten about that. They're lovely. I really love how it sets itself up because we have like a moment of like nice playful interaction and then we immediately go into like urgency, and it's a really good setting up of stakes, and I just really love this book. I know I gave it 4 stars when I read it, but this is really a pleasant surprise because when I thought of it, what came to mind first was like a pet peeve that I had, which is there are like unambiguously evil races that are just evil, they're born evil, and I don't really like that. And also, I think, people have bows and arrows and they use swords, but the one time that it like specified a weapon, it was a scimitar, and of course it was the evil races that used it. And like this wasn't to an extent where it was like clearly on purpose, but I think just, yeah, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine, and I think maybe they just, it's a kind of, like scimitars for evil people is kind of a trope. So it's not, like I said, it's just a pet peeve, but that was the thing that I remembered, and so I'm really enjoying this.
So it is unfortunately going a lot slower than I had hoped, or not the book's fault. I really like it. I love that even though she's not really with her family anymore, there's a support network and it's great. And it is starting to rub against the thing that kind of was a pet peeve the last time I read it, which was Mr. Thompson is doing a really good thing of being like, so all these bad things are happening, you're being attacked, you're asking the wrong question, let's look at it another way. And like her first thing was like, maybe they're evil. I mean, like, maybe, but that's first assumption, okay. Being that this readathon was inspired by like middle grade books, I want to shout out The Legendary Mosetto, which did stop me from doing this because it's a book that I needed to read to review, and it's up now, and that's fine. It's really good. It's a fun adventure of this girl who does like secret martial arts, and she's auditioning for a part in a movie, and so it's like actiony and it's fun, and the author knows martial arts, but it's also like really good in terms of like her family and dynamics. Like her hero is the star of the movie, and it kind of deals with hero and hero worship, and also the fact that she very desperately wants her father's approval and what it means like when he kind of goes silent. Not a book for the readathon, but I really enjoyed it. So while I was waiting for her, we got to a really interesting bit where we were talking about, are we in an epicenter, or is this like a much more widespread thing, which is, standard fantasy. But I really like that Amber brought in, that Mr. Thompson told her to reframe questions. And so while this is still like, it's a quest, we go and we find the bad and then we deal with it, there's also a sense of like investigation, and so it really feels like it's a mystery to be solved and not just kind of your standard sword and sorcery. So I am about halfway through, and I think it's been just under a week, which is a really nice kind of realization to have, because it's still very readable and it feels like there's a lot of momentum and a lot of things happening, so it's not like it's dragging. I really like that we've just had a little bit where Amber said that she's already sick of killing. So like I did make fun when she was like immediately jumped to the goblins are evil, but like I do like that there isn't a reveling in it, I guess. And it's not nothing either, that there is a comment on it. Also, the fight scenes are really good. I don't know if I said that before, but like they're really good. Oh, there it is. I had forgotten about that bit. Okay, firstly, I'm real sorry because the box moved and yeah. We haven't really talked about my criticisms, I don't think. And we've got to this point, so here we go. I do think I backed this one in Kickstarter and then its sequel, which I didn't actually have the time to get to. And because my criticisms of this book were what lingered, I didn't back the third. So there's that description, which fuck it, I'm not touching that. It is what it is. And then there's Basil. And to be clear, like I like Basil, but he's in a supportive cast. He's like the character who jabs deliberately at another one and also repeatedly. And to be clear, I'm not saying I'm going purely on the art and the fact that I singled him out last time. He might be white as well. But yeah, it's great and like giving dimension to his relationship with Theo and giving Basil himself an arc. But yeah, we'll see how this all builds in the second book. But I really don't want to, I don't feel like it's deliberate, which I want to really emphasise, especially given that one of the authors was like 10 at the time. So I owe this book a bit of an apology. I said it was like a continent or an island, and certainly it is part of the continent, but it is not an island. There's a map in the book, but obviously I didn't notice that when I was reading it, so I'm really excited by the epilogue because it mentions a town that is not on the map, and so that's exciting. There was also like one last thing, that Ryder went off with this very bookish guy and was like, well, while you're here in the library, I'll go and get some like actual reconnaissance done. And then he came back and they both had like information to contribute, and I think with like the more investigative, that's not how you say that, it's nice that it kind of validates multiple ways of learning. This is bigger than I thought it was going to be, so we'll see how that goes. So we just saw our first human body on Paige, who is not a villain or one of the evil races, and I think that's a fantastic way to start off book 2, because already there was such a spike in the stakes, and this really kind of, the escalation is brilliant. We're not talking about that, however, we're talking about Yona of the Dawn, because this is not the second book I started for this readathon. I like to do things in order, and Yona of the Dawn was like the 6th book on my TBR, but I read that at the start of the month because I guess it completely went over my head. So Yona of the Dawn is about Yona, who was a princess who was spoiled and loved, and her cousin was coming and she kind of had a crush on him and thought something was going to happen, and it did. He killed her dad and took the throne. And I love it because he clearly loves her, even if it's, not the love that she wanted from him. But also the three of them, him, Yona, and Hack, her bodyguard, they kind of all grew up together, and they're so close and they love each other so much that when he kills her dad, he lets Yona and Hack go. And that's a bad decision, but he did it because he loves them and they still love him. And it's fantastic. And I think by the end of volume 2, that had been like thrown in the... It's going to come up again, but it's on the back burner for now. And I think that's one of my problems with the series, that it has such a fast pace. So volume 3, the library got in like at the start of the year, and so it's been a while. And I didn't really like that when I came back to it, the first thing that was happening was the white dragon, who is a dick and whom I do not like, was bickering with Hack. It's just like, grow up. But also, they were doing a lot of travelling over, I think, the first half, and it was like, I don't feel like you're going anywhere. The scenery isn't really changing. I'm not getting a sense that you've made any progress whatsoever. You just keep saying, oh, we're travelling. You don't look like you're doing that. Likewise, like, the village of the Blue Dragon should have been so interesting, because the White Dragon's village venerated him, and the Blue Dragon's village, like, he's an orphan because his mom killed herself because she gave birth to the Blue Dragon, and the Blue Dragon is cursed, and, like, it should have been so interesting. And it wasn't. It just wasn't. That being said, I still think I don't really rate books anymore, so I can't remember if I rated this one. But I think it would have been about 4 or 5 stars. That being said, because we got the Blue Dragon's backstory, and that is the best this manga has been so far. Honestly, I've started volume 5, it's still the best manga has been, because it was really emotional, and it was like a fantastic character piece and exploration, and you get such an understanding for him. And I said in my TBR, this is a tentative pick because I love dragons, and these are like descendants of dragons. Maybe I'd want like an actual more dragony dragon, but I think I'm going to give it to Shana, the Blue Dragon, because I love him so much. I really love this cover for Crowder the Ancient. It just feels a lot more exciting and actiony, which I think is a really good way of like talking about this one. There is more action, there is more urgency. I really like that we're digging a little bit more into Ryder and his curiosity about his own powers. He is separate from the three of them, and so when he walks right into the wizard's castle, it's like, oh no. And I do think it's interesting, the temptation, even if he does like tamp down on it. It's a really good kind of tension. Oh man, though. Like I've really been enjoying it. And then we got to this little elf girl who was under attack, who has an exotic accent, and her name is Mizu, and she has almond eyes, and it's like, ugh, again. This was like a 2020s book, but it's still, I still feel like a lot of the discourse around representation and stuff
is online. I know it's moved offline in many ways, but it still feels very online to me, and so I'm not. It's understandable if it hasn't reached people, but at the same time, it's like it's getting harder with every instance to be like, well, it's getting more annoying, which is not great because, as you may have heard me mention, I tried to do Framed in September and 1330 this month as well, and it's like, do I want to go to this little Asian elf's home and have to read more shit like that, or do I want to just like read manga? And I think the answer is I want to read manga. Okay, so I know I said I'd go back to manga, which I do want to do, but I thought Framed in September would be more important because crafting was one of the prompts. Ooh. I was so sure that it was only in the last row that I went from 20 stitches to 19 stitches, but I've taken back 4 rows now and we're still at 19. And as I was doing it this time, in utter despair, I noticed this little bit. See the bit that's sticking up? I think that might be the dropped stitch. Do you see how far down that is? At this point, I think, because I don't want the whole thing to unravel because of a drop stitch, I think I'm just going to have to start again, which... I wanted to try and get to at least 25% through, but it's really going for my nerves. I will say this, I am glad that we've gotten a little bit with Castor, who is one of the villains, just because we're getting a little bit, at least a hint of like why he's here and why he took his side. Hopefully that'll be interesting. I'm not finishing this book tonight. There's just under 2.5 hours left in the day, and I'm not gonna lose. At the end of Academy, I was getting to like 2 hours a day, and I did not lose then, and I'm not gonna lose now. So I picked White Fox by Chen Jiatong. They do not tell you who the translator is on the cover because they're assholes, but illustration is by Viola Wang. It is quite big text, and there are very small illustrations. Let's do it. Let's just do it. So, in an hour-ish, I managed to get this far in, which is pretty good. We're over halfway there. It is a lot faster to read than I thought it would be, and also it feels fast because it's very episodic. But the story itself is, oh well, okay. So there's a bit in the back. It says, "Try it. Read page 47." And I don't think that's a very good sample because it's basically just a conversation between the characters about the quest, which you know what the quest is from the blurb. I'm finding it really hard to talk about this because it is like either the young end of middle grade or like just a step below middle grade. I think it's just a step below middle grade, honestly, but it's not Watership Down,
but a family gets gunned down, and a baby is made an orphan, and it's like, okay, I don't know what to think, honestly. That was not what I expected going in, and I haven't quite readjusted. Okay, 'tis done, and I don't really like this one. There are some environmental themes, a poisoned river, but it's also in line with the episodic nature of it. You have to have threats, and they're trying to go for a balance of like, not all humans are bad, but it also means that there are some like really cruel animals, and it's like, it's a little too mean for me. That said, I really like Buana's story at the end, which is just a little 2-page kind of lore thing. It's really nice. I like the folktale fairy tale feeling of it.